Welcome to All Worn Out. I'm your host, Warren Meredith. On the show today, musician Andrew Gharib. He's from the band Desert Stranger, and they just released a brand new song called Where Did I Go Wrong? It's out on Spotify and everywhere you listen to music. Go and check it out. Now, let's get into it with Andrew Gharib. Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Worn Out. It's a podcast about music. It's a podcast about what you're passionate about, and it's a podcast about what our guest is passionate about. We are very lucky, thrilled, excited, over the moon. We're ready to go. We've got the very cool, the enigmatic, the very amazingly, brilliantly cool man. This is where I just lose my mind and my adjectives run out.
Keep going, please.
Andrew Gharib.
Thank you for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Hey, man, I'm glad you're here. I gotta get a dictionary and some adjectives going in the new year. I'm starting to lose my flow.
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 for me.
Thank you. Well, you have a project these days called Desert Stranger, right?
Yes, sir. Desert Stranger since about 20. I started writing for this project about 2019, actually, but I didn't release an album until 22.
Okay. And when did you? Well, yeah, I saw that you kind of started writing for this project. I guess through a lot of it through COVID, through that crazy time that we all lived through.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because some of my songs I wrote are like a little bit about COVID, not directly referencing them. But now that when I listen back, I'm like, oh, this is like out of date now. But I started writing around 2019, 2020, and then, but through COVID though, like it just gave an opportunity to write and record. I mean, like I was able to do that, and I recorded everything like in a normal kind of pace, like. You wouldn't know there was a pandemic because people were available. I mean, not till like 20, halfway through 21, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, man. I remember us trying to keep things going during that time period. And it's very difficult. Even just to get together at that time was difficult. And then matching people's opinions on anything, right? 5 guys in a band, I try and tell people, like, we're not going to politically align. Like, we're not a political group. We're not necessarily going to agree on everything, So a time like that just puts so much extra unnecessary stress.
A lot of tension.
Yeah, for no reason.
For sure. Yeah.
So going back in time, I read that you were 6 years old and you started piano, which is the same as me. That's pretty much the same thing happened with me. Now, what's your story with piano? Did you just get shoved into it, or did you have a discovery moment?
I guess I got shoved into it, but I really enjoyed it. I had a teacher that lived just like 3 or 4 houses down the street from my parents' place. And so it was very flexible, and I could, go when I wanted. And I think at one point she told my parents, like, he's really very good, so you should kind of like nurture that. And I ended up doing Royal Conservatory till about I think I got grade 6, and then I started studying for grade 7, and I planned to take the test for grade 7. I think I failed it, actually. And then that was around the time, I was like a teenager and I was losing interest in piano. And that's when I picked up a guitar, and I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. So I stopped the piano. But I guess 10 years later, I actually went back and I was like, I'm going to get my grade 7. And then I was no good. So, but yeah, I started around 6 years old and stopped at 16. And that's when I picked up my guitar for the first time.
Well, for people who don't know, Royal Conservatory is not easy. It's quite difficult. And like, I never made it that high. And I would say it gets quite serious at level 3. Grade 3 upwards, it starts getting kind of more and more intense. The first 2 are kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like, oh, the game is on. We are now going to be...
And then the theory.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the ear tests, like that's the stuff I liked. I liked being tested like that way. That was cool because that's what I was good at. I think a lot of us musicians, right? That's kind of where our niche is like our ear, and finding out when we were young that like our ear wasn't wrong, that our ear would often be bang on. And we'd be like, okay, there's something here. And like that forms that attachment if you have a good teacher. And you must have had a very good teacher.
Yeah, she was fantastic. She was really, really good and very detail oriented, but super, super nice. I mean, as young, you don't want to be too much of a hard ass on a kid, but yeah, it took a lot of work. I mean, I was in there every week pretty much. So for the entirety of my childhood, yeah.
Most people I know, I think they stop around 9 if they get that high. Like my bass player, I think that's as high as he could go. And like he was like, it's like orchestra stuff. And I'm like, weird. I would not be able to.
And that's when I stopped because I was like, this is like a heavy commitment. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I guess if I was a different age, maybe it would have been different, but I don't know. I guess the rock music just caught my soul, and I just was like, oh, I got to do this.
There you go. Do you have an early memory of hearing rock music or any type of music where it captured you and took you somewhere?
Yeah. I grew up with 2 older brothers, and they're very much into music, and that's where I got like a lot of my musical taste from. So a lot of the 80s stuff, like the Bon Jovis, the hair metal. And I remember I used to share a bedroom actually when I was a kid with my brother, and he had a record player there, and I think he threw on U2's Joshua Tree.
Okay.
And it was the first track, Where the Streets Have No Name. It was just like this like epic cinematic sound, and my little brain was like what is this? Like it just like transported me to another, I don't know where, but it was awesome. And it just I'm still a huge fan to this day. So that kind of was my first real memory. But actually, I took a lot of road trips with my parents like several years before that, like in the early 80s. And I actually listened to quite a bit of like top 40 radio, Casey Kasem and Rick Dees and those kinds of people. And it really kind of tuned my ear to pop music and not how to write, but just memorable hooks that really stayed in your ear for many, many years. And I think that kind of subconsciously translated into how I write my music.
I would agree. I was picking up on some of that. Like my notes about your songs, I'm going to go through them with you. They're not a lot, but what I was picking up on was, of course, the modern rock feel is there with your songs, but I was also sometimes getting alternative. I was also sometimes getting a little touch of adult contemporary almost, which I think is coming from that pop feel that you're talking about, those pop insights, but the way it's coming through, it's almost like the music is almost too good to call it pop. You know what I mean? I that's my compliment backhand. Like the music is really
no, it's not. It's
like,
not.
It's very good. You know, like it's just like I almost don't want to call it pop. Because,
you know, sometimes, and I'm sure you've experienced this. Like when you're writing your music, you're influenced by your life and the music you listen to, and then when you put it out and somebody else hears it and they hear something else you didn't, that was influenced by something you heard but maybe you forgot about, or just weren't sort of consciously aware of. I think that's a good example of that, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I was enjoying all the Desert Stranger music, but still back in time. So you find this guitar at 16, I guess you said.
Yeah.
And it's a similar story to me. I kind of sold all my Goldie equipment when I was 13 because I realized I wasn't going to get a growth spurt. And and I went and I bought a Samick electric guitar and amp and took lessons, and I wasn't very good at all. I mean, I was far worse at guitar than I was at piano, so music for me took a back seat for a while, and it wasn't until years later I found like a chord book through a church group, believe it or not, but it had all the chords written out, you know, like so I could, you know, all the chord pages, so it was just easy to learn. And so all of a sudden I picked up like 5, 6, 7, 8 chords, and then you're like, okay, this isn't, I can strum. I can, you know, make things up that way. So kind of similar. And then, so did you go into a band right away in high school?
Yeah, right away, pretty much. We were in, I was in a 5-piece for a while. I don't know if you know a local musician named Rory Gardner.
Okay, yeah. I think I've met Rory, and our paths have crossed.
He's actually a comedian now.
Yes,
he still has elements of the music, but him and I started our first band when we were in high school with a few other guys, and he was a singer, I was a guitarist, And it was just a lot of good. We actually got some pretty decent success. Like I think we opened for Widemouth Mason at Bluesfest one year. I'm pretty sure. It wasn't a huge. It was way back when it was. Where is that now? Down by Elgin, I think.
That's still cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. And, I think we went till about 2004, and then we moved on at that point. But we're still really good friends.
So, what bands were you in? So you mentioned U2,
right?
And so you're 16. You're into rock music. What else were you into? What else was?
The grunge got me pretty heavy. Pearl Jam was a big one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first records I bought with my own money, actually. I think it was Pearl Jam Versus, 94. A lot of angsty Nirvana, like all that stuff. Really just it was such a huge like wave, which I don't know, man. I haven't experienced that since then.
No.
I don't think that was like a once in a, not even generation, like once in I don't know how long, but so definitely a lot of grunge. I loved the Pearl Jam and the Smashing Pumpkins and the Radioheads of the world. I pretty much dove headfirst into rock music at that point for sure.
Yeah, man. Like some of your band choices for me are like I'm not a huge fan of U2, but the song you talked about does strike a strong memory with me in a positive way. And that's how I know they are a great band, is because their music can just sit in your lexicon somewhere and exist, and it's fine. And so sometimes I don't like Bono. I
know, yeah. It's when you get to that level of popularity, you're going to have so many people that love you, but a lot of people that hate your guts too a little bit.
Right. Exactly.
And he's got that sort of frontman complex that on a very, sort of next level for sure. And a lot of people, maybe criticize as sort of like political kind of activities, which when you're a musician, it's really weird. No, it's not weird to get into that, but it divides people right away.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's like, okay, well, you got to go one way. But I respect the guy for like going hard in whatever direction he's going in. He's not like going to listen to people and be like, oh, what should I do? Like, he's actually, I read his autobiography very recently. It was really interesting. And as a lifelong fan, I really learned that he's first of all, super eccentric, like in his writing and his behavior. I was like, this guy's super eccentric. But if he was never in a band, I like 100% he would be a philanthropist. Like there's no, like 100%. He's like super passionate about it. So, for sure.
Okay. And then like The Edge, everyone loves The Edge. And sometimes
that's how I learned guitar.
I mean, right? He's a pretty incredible, innovative guitarist. He thinks about stuff, I think, simply, but then is able to extrapolate on it. Like, because a lot of the times you'll look at the riff and it'll sound larger than life, but then you look at the tab for it and you're like, that's not that difficult.
There's a really funny video about that actually, where he's showing how he plays the song Elevation.
Yeah,
that beginning is like wow, wow, wow. It's like this crazy fuzzed out like wah. And then, so he has the effect on and he's doing it. And then he's like, here's what it sounds like with the effect off. He shuts it off and he's like, bum, bum. It's two notes, like moving one finger. It was just, it was kind of funny. Like, so, he's a painter. I look at him as a painter, really,
Yeah, I think that's important for musicians or guitarists to see, that they can take a different look at things. Like they don't have to look at it through the Jimi Hendrix perspective necessarily all the time. They can look at it, smaller chunks. How do I extrapolate off this? And oftentimes simplicity is where you're going to find the good stuff anyways.
And that's what sticks into your memory for a long time, is those simple riffs, the Beatles and all that. Yeah,
exactly. Sure. So then you're in that band, you graduate high school.
Yeah.
What's next for Andrew at that point?
The high school band actually lasted in about 2004.
Okay.
And then after that ended, another friend of mine from like grade school, we weren't like really friends in grade school. Like we knew each other, but then in our 20s, we became really good friends. And then we started a band called Tunnel Vision in about 2007. It was very hard rock, very, like heavily influenced by like Tool and things like that.
Yeah.
and we played some shows. He was a singer, I was a guitar player at that point. And I think we had some. We didn't really do much. We wrote a lot of music. We didn't perform as much as maybe we could have, but I did a lot of the arrangements myself, like doing drums on keyboards and things like that, like writing and creating all the music. And it was just the two of us in the project. So, so that lasted a few years, and then brought me into my last band, which was Animal Confession. Around 2011-ish is when I started writing for that band around 2009. And I actually didn't start singing until I was like 29. So that was kind of unexpected. I was always a guitar player. I was kind of a sideman. So started around that time and went headfirst into that one.
Interesting, because I always often think that I fell into singing late. Like, I didn't start singing till maybe I was 22 or 23. And the timelines are interesting for me, because 2009 I start solo as Ginger Fox. Then 2011 I would say I had Ginger Fox Band.
That's a great name.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And I would show up to venues sometimes, and they would be disappointed. They would go,
"What do you mean?"
Well, they would go, "You're not the Ginger Fox." And I would say, "What were you expecting?"
Come on.
I would say, "What were you expecting?" And they'd say, "You're supposed to be a girl." I'd say,
okay.
And I would say to them, "No." I say that would be a ginger vixen. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They're not schooled in the ways of the ginger.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes it was funny, but I had fun. Now, that was a lot of learning, hard lessons through the industry, that there was still a lot of naivety in me, in a sweet way, I think, in a nice way, in a way where you think anything can really happen at any moment. And it's true, it can. But just a little more of that, I think, in my thought process, a little less grinded down.
When did you start Taming Sorry after that project?
So Taming Sorry doesn't begin till 2017,
Okay.
End of like summer 2017, and then really doesn't start taking shape till 2018. And then we go away to the studio. You meet the producer. The producer's like, "Well, Warren, I know you like to sing everything, but I think your voice fits here really well in Southern rock." And I was like, "Okay, well," and the guys wanted to go for it. So that's kind of where Taming Sorry starts and moves from. Because the first 4 songs we did, like, no one can find them. They're very like Our Lady Peace in comparison. Very like alternative.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I think I was using my whine in my voice a bit too much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a learning experience being in Ginger Fox and Taming Sorry, because it keeps changing bands, right? You keep learning new lessons. And how many members was Animal Confession?
We were a trio, actually.
Oh, wow.
Bass and drums, and I took care of the guitars, and that was challenging at times. I was very heavily influenced by like some of the Canadian, like the Tea Party. I don't know if you ever listen to them, but
yeah,
when you go watch them live, and they're 3 guys, they just have this insane, huge sound. It sounds like 6 guys are on the stage. But I think, I don't think we got quite there, but I think we filled out the sound pretty well, I think, just using a few little guitar tricks here and there. But yeah, we were a trio.
That's awesome. I find, that's the way to go now if you can do it, or if you're like Crownlands, be a duo and each of you play 2 instruments at the same time.
They just came through here, and I didn't get a chance to go. They're playing at the Neat Cafe.
It's so humbling, man. I just remember standing at the side of the stage, just being like, "Okay, yeah, I am an imposter. Never mind."
No, you know what? It's like, when you watch somebody, you're like, why did they get all the talent? Why did they get an Ian Thornley?
Yeah.
Ian Thornley. That's when when I look at that guy, I'm like, you friggin' got all the talent, this guy. But but it's awesome. And there's a lot of like the duo thing really took off after, White Stripes and that kind of thing.
I agree. Totally. They showed that like the sound could be huge.
Yeah.
And that you no longer had to justify it with like 10 double stack Marshall amps behind you in a music video.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could just say we're fucking loud and that's the way it is, you know? So you're totally right about that. And the trio, the duo, it's way more looked upon nicely by the industry these days because there's less ends to tie up. There's less odds of somebody hanging on. There's less odds of somebody just messing shit up for people. And I mean, it's why we have all these amazing stories. It's because we have these bands that were 5, 6, 7 members and there was insanity going on. And so that was the legend of rock. But I don't think we can go back there just financially today's world, you know?
No, not at all. But there's something really fun about a trio, you know, like one thing was like, oh, there's so much more stage space to play with, you know? And then just the logistics of being in a band is just easier, like scheduling, if somebody gets sick or whatever, you know, touring, whatever. It's just things are a little bit simpler when there's fewer people, if you can pull it off.
Yeah, right now, Taming Sari's jamming is a 4-piece, and I am loving the space in, like, for my vocals.
You were
like,
5-piece, right?
Yeah, and right now, there's no rhythm. Right now, the guitarist, there's 2 new fellows, and the new guitarist is doing both parts, and it's amazing.
It's working?
Yeah. Man, the last 4 jams have been, like, really fun for me because everyone's hitting it, and
keep me posted on that. I didn't get a chance to see you guys, Siley. I had, there was a few shows in recent, I don't know, I want to say maybe early this year or maybe last year. And then I wasn't able to go. And then I think you guys maybe took a little bit of a break. So yeah, definitely want to check that out. I'm glad to hear it's still going.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a different lineup, and I think it's going to be hard for people, but the number one thing is, like, no one in the band went headhunting. No one in this band went out and said, get out of the band. That's just not what happened. There's none of that crap. There's no negativity in that way. For us, it was just people wanting to do different things with their lives and put their money and their energy and their time and because after 7 years, it's a lot.
Yeah, I've been there too. Yeah.
You know, and my response to them was like, let's take 3 months. Let's just sit on this and see how we feel. And then if you still feel that way, I'm not done. I could tell you right now, I'm not done. So I'm still connected to the 20 songs. I still want to play those 20 songs and build on them and build off that sound. So I'm going to try to. We're going to try to.
I think if you're passionate about it, not even passionate, but it's not even a passion. It's just, it's inside of you.
Yeah.
And, you know, after my last band ended, I mean, I took a break, but I wasn't like, oh, music's no longer for me. Like, no, I just wrote new songs, you know, and the songs just come out. They just keep coming. It's like, that's never going to end. It's,
you're a songwriter first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got infected by that whole thing back in high school, I guess, and maybe even before. When you were maybe at some kind of piano composition camp. I remember being, you know, going to those as kids.
I don't think I did that.
I was.
Oh, there's a story here. Tell me.
Oh, just kids tried to come up with great piano compositions and just how absurd it is when I look back at it and how seriously we take things as kids. And, you know, back then I remember thinking, oh, I had the second best ear tests in the whole school. That means I might become Elvis Presley. Oh my God. Like, not really. But actually back then I was such a snob. I probably thought I'd become Mozart or something. I mean, then I do my reading about these poor bastards.
Delusions
Mozart.
of grandeur,
right?
Yeah.
And you read about these poor bastards and you're like, they died at 35 of consumption. And you're like, and his wife was left penniless. So his apprentice has to finish his last symphony and claim that it was by Mozart and gifts it to the wife so she can make a few more dollars. It's insane.
It's always those you know, those artists that become in the lexicon that they seem to die early. You know, there's that 27 Club.
Yes.
And then Elvis died at 42.
Yep.
I don't know what happened to him. Did he die of
I think he did a lot of pills, if I'm not mistaken.
And he got pretty big too.
And he was not treating him like drinking and pills, I think.
Right.
And like that, I don't know. And it's always been covered up. They've never really, they would say it's heart failure or whatever.
There's people to this day that will follow that conspiracy theory that he's still alive.
Yeah.
I actually just got back from Nashville a couple of weeks ago. And I did a tour of his RCA studios where he recorded, like, I don't know, the bulk of his catalog. And they bring you in the room and they're like, well, this is the spot where he sang from. They put a little X on it. Go take your picture on the X. This is where his singers sang, his backup singers. And he had his piano in there. I got to sit on Elvis's piano, which there was just this energy in that room, man. I can't explain it. It was incredible. And there's actually behind the piano, there's this cabinet. And I guess he was listening back to something at one point. And he got frustrated and he kicked the cabinet door and broke it. And they just left it there, just like a broken door, just sitting there. And it's just largely the same. People are still going in there and recording, like many artists are going in there. But I've never felt an energy like that before. I got to tell you, it was quite an experience. And I love Elvis. I mean, who doesn't?
I mean, that talks about like, that goes to vibes and atmosphere. Yeah. And the staining of a space with energy, like the same way you can stain a wall. You know, people talk about how, traumatic memories will cause that, that staining of the space, and that ghost will live there forever. And I think it's just like that with energy, with great energy. You can really saturate a place. And that's why certain venues you go into, and you feel it. I mean, when I was very first starting out, I remember the first time I went into the Rainbow and went into the backstage, the very first time I remember going, what is that smell? And what is that feeling I'm getting? It's like there's like 30,000 dead people standing around me right now watching me. They've all performed here. It's just a weird feeling. And I love it. Even the penis room at the Brass Monkey, I would wish it to everybody. The backstage there is just decked out with different penises by every band who's ever played there. Yep. So I mean, it's uncomfortable, but it's also really surreal.
Yeah.
So I mean, gosh, where's some other places? Like the El Macombo really gave me vibes when I was there. Yeah. For Canadian Music Week, I was like, wow, this place, I just feel the history. The Horseshoe.
So glad they brought it back.
Oh, yeah, man.
I saw it the last time I haven't been to Horseshoe in a long time, but I saw a secret show there.
Nice.
Have you heard of Spoon?
I think I did hear of them.
Yeah. They were, and actually meeting up with them and like hanging out with them after the show in their green room. We're just hanging, chatting. They're just telling us where they're from and all this. We weren't even huge fans. It was they were so good. They were amazing live. But yeah, that's a great room too, the Horseshoe.
Yeah, and a lot of pressure I felt there, and like the sound man was great, like almost too good. I'm almost like waiting for the sound man to be like a regular sound man, maybe not know 100%, but what they're doing with this guy, he knows what he's doing. Yeah. It's just like bang, 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 bang.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, same thing with El Macombo, but we were able to win. It's always nice when you can win the sound man over, and afterwards they're like, okay, we liked working with you. And you're like, okay, I'm really, that's something that just makes a band feel great.
Yeah.
Like we did things right.
It goes both ways. I think if you come in there and you have your shit together and you're on time and you're efficient, like the sound guy is already going to like you.
Yeah.
So he's already going to have a good impression. So I think you increase your chances of kind of having that good relationship. And it goes both ways too. I'm sure you've run into shitty sound guys too.
It's huge. It's huge. A sound man can make or break. It's just the sound in general can make or break a show, and it's just normal. It's why we started getting microphones and PAs in the first place. It's like, because people liked singing a cappella for people and all that, but I mean, eventually you get a bigger crowd, and I always tell people like what a shock it was for me when I heard back our performance at the CTC for the Sens game. So just hearing the way that it echoed through the building differently than what I heard and where I was standing.
That must have been an amazing feeling.
It was an amazing feeling in the time.
Yeah.
But then I'm sitting down watching the game in the third period, and while I am, the comments,
you heard something.
The comments start rolling in. So some of them are really supportive, and some of them are really mean. And I was expecting some criticism because we did do 3 originals. Like they were asking us, like when we went in, they were like, what do you want to get paid? What do you want out of this? I said, no. I want to play 3 originals. You're never asking us back. Like I want to do original music.
Yeah.
And I just want to have that.
And they were cool with that?
Yeah. They let me get away with it because Down with the Devil was doing really well. So I told them, like, that was what attracted them to us, was our video Down with the Devil had sense colors, I think, and just the lighting of it. And I think they were like, oh, cool, Down with the Devil. And I sold them on the idea of like, well, what if it was like a Devil's game? And then it ended up not being a Devil's game. It ended up being St. Louis, but whatever. And so we just did 3 originals, and it was a crowd of 9,500. Like it wasn't a sellout or anything like that by any stretch.
That's still a great audience, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember Craig Anderson, the goalie, walking down the thing as we're finishing, and he was a big rock and roll fan. So he was coming down to listen to us before everyone else came down. So I was like, oh, that made me feel great that he gave a crap. And then final story of it, we're leaving the building and we're blocking Eugene Melnick in. So,
really?
Yeah, this is what he's hated by the city, by the way. And at war with the city, in a way. So Miguel is blocking his vehicle with his big truck. And I guess Melnick was getting pissed. And so he opens the door, and there he is with his 2 daughters in this big, like, limo. And he's like, get this truck out of here now. I want to go fucking home. You think I want to sit here all night? And like, like being belligerent. And his daughters are like, Dad, stop it. Like, Dad, just be patient.
You can picture him saying that.
Oh yeah, he was mad. And I get it. He wanted to go home. And so I just said, he looked at me like, what's going on? And I was like, Miguel is giving the security pass, and then he's coming right back, and we're getting out of your way, man.
Yeah.
And so like, that's my other funny, like,
well, when you're that guy, you probably think you own all the area. I mean, he does own it. He thinks everybody should just get the fuck out of his way.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely in that mode.
Yeah.
They lost, and he was just in a bad mood. And so I wasn't blaming or anything. I was just like, Miguel, let's go. Come on, let's go. I don't want a lifetime ban.
Yeah.
Like, I love the team. But yeah, it was fun.
That fucking band that blocked me that night. Don't invite them back again.
Did you do Bluesfest several times, or just the one?
Just the once, actually. Well, at that time, my band was kind of doing this. We were going like this, and then Bluesfest hit. I did a little bit of this, and then it just blew up after that. So I never got a chance to play after that one.
It's yeah, well, I mean, Taming Sorry is not any different, and it's because you're going up this escalator, and you are up the mountain, and you're pushing, you're going, and then you get there, and then it's like, okay, now where do we go? And so our plans was to go to Europe, and like we had 10 dates booked out in the UK, and stuff just didn't work. Funding fell through, and
it's so hard.
Yeah, and the funding fell through, and we had to cancel, and it was heartbreaking. And there's just at that time, then people made decisions for their life where they were like, okay, gonna do this now, gonna do that. And me and Alex, the bassist, are just like, well, I love this. I love it so much, man.
It takes an absurd amount of commitment.
It does, right?
It just takes like the willingness to be rejected continually and be totally okay with it. And in a devastating way, like losing funding for a tour is a big deal.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure you hurt for a while. After that, you're just like, okay, well, just get back on the horse eventually. And then the people that are not gonna stick around, they're gonna leave anyway.
That's right.
So it might even be a good thing at the end of the day,
Yeah, it's a reset. It's a reset. The people that we're working with now, I'm super high on. Like I've loved since November. So it hasn't been long, but since November, it's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
And the jams went fast. Like, I thought it would take a long time for them to learn the songs, and they didn't. They did all their homework. Like sometimes
that's the best. Yeah,
people come to jam, and it's like, they're like, I'm going to learn the songs on this spot. And you're like, ugh.
Those are the people you don't hire.
Right. Because this is going to take a long time. And now it's like, if you just at least practice it a couple times so you could have followed along.
And I got to say, that's why I started to go with session players in this particular project. Because, I mean, yeah, it costs, but they come prepared, they come on time, and they play things like flawlessly. And when you have band members that are playing your music flawlessly, it's just awesome. It's a great feeling, And you don't have to maybe a little bit. You don't have to do too much, hand holding or guidance or whatever. And it's a jam. Like even if you're with session players, you're jamming in a band at the end of the day, but it just comes so much quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it can't be overstated, like how good session musicians are. I mean, that's Jimmy Page. That's all. That's a lot of the greats were session musicians, and they got great by playing on endless albums and learning from these great artists and producers. And those are always the people who become like the legends. They're just open to learn.
Yeah.
And then he was like ready. He was so picky, right, with the vocalist and everything for Zeppelin that it kind of makes me cringe almost. How mean they were in the beginning. Like they used to make him go get the sandwiches. And for me,
is that right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, they were not nice to him in the very beginning. But then he became like best friends with Bonham. So that bond kind of changed the dynamics of things a little bit. And but I mean, again, it's standards in a band. If everyone has to come to the same, like, these are my standards. This is how good I need to be. This is how good we need to be. And this is, if you push that standard higher while you're in the band together, it's like people call you an asshole. People be like, no, you can't change now. Like, no. So it's really important that you come to that agreement point of, this is where we are. This is the line.
And look at where that got them.
Yeah, man.
One of the most, if not most influential guitar bands, rock bands in history.
Insane.
Like, how many bands, even off the top of your head, could you name that are influenced by Led Zeppelin? It's impossible. There's so many. It's just absurd.
Yep.
It's kind of the same with all the big, even like the U2s of the world. How many bands generated out of that kind of sound? And Led Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff. So
many.
Yeah.
No, not to that level. And it was an epic conversation the other day with Slow Tom on here, because he was explaining how his band, he gave a lot of credit to the fact that Cargo Distribution, who they were with, their band, also was distributing Nirvana and just happened to have the rights. So they said, look, the Cargo Records said, we will totally distribute Nirvana, but could we put our 3 number ones beside it on the shelf?
Really?
And that included Furnace Face, Slow Tom's band.
Right.
And so that epically changed the trajectory of the band, because that increased your sales tenfold by being beside Nirvana.
Wow.
In all those record stores.
Yeah.
And so I was just, it's amazing how the world of music and connections can work like that. And, Nirvana never knew it. Maybe they know in the back of their mind, we affected people's careers, but they really affected Furnace Face's career without knowing them, without ever meeting them.
I didn't know that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was great that Tom tells it so humble. Like I was telling him, like, no, take more credit. Like, you guys were fucking awesome and innovative and put out 5 albums and much music and all that legendary stuff, but super humble. And again, this is a trait I find of the musicians who have come on all worn out, and also musicians in general. I think it's rare you find a Prince where it's like, yeah, I'm good.
Like a diva type?
Yeah, where, like, if you said to Prince, like, wow, you're so good, he'd be like, yeah, and? You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, it's rare you find that. And I think it's good, because most people cannot pull that off without people being like,
oh, yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah.
not so nice, But Dog mentioned from Dog and Gus podcast that he thinks Canadians are too quiet. We're too quiet about how good we are. That sometimes our artists need to speak out. And,
I think that's true.
And say, no, we are friggin' good and we do produce high quality product. So, yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about Desert Stranger.
Sure.
Do you have any shows coming up in the near future?
I don't. I do have. I have plans to play live on Elgin in the spring.
Excellent.
So it's a bit further away. I just wanted some more time to get some, because I'm working on album 2 right now, and I just wanted some more time to get those tunes out. And the one that I released today was kind of like the starting point for that. So. But yeah, in the near future, for sure.
Today, the release was Where Did I Go Wrong?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, I like that one very much. I'll tell you, the song that really struck me was Interstellar, I actually think is underrated out of the whole thing. Like, Maybe I'm Blind is great. You're right. Maybe I'm Blind is a fantastic chorus.
Thank you, man.
The Futurist really struck me. As a modern rock song, I was like, this is sick. I liked it a lot. So, I mean, I think all the songs you've been working on with Desert Stranger, they fit together really nice.
Yeah, I think I've made a conscious effort to go a little bit more, maybe not necessarily heavier, but more upbeat. You know, a lot of like some of the songs on the first record, I'm really proud of them, and you know, but I wanted to really get something a bit more upbeat. I was just like, I want people to just like move a bit, like start dancing a little bit, get that kind of that kind of rhythm that makes people move around, and that's kind of where the Futurists came out of. Like, I didn't even really. Like, I wrote the tempo first before I wrote any of the chords. You know,
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I've heard that one, but that's a good way of putting it. Like,
I stole that from Dave Grohl. I can't take any credit for that one. He was talking in a documentary about I can't remember the song right now, but he was writing the riff, and he was picturing like how high he wanted the audience to be jumping up and down. And he was like doing this with his hand, up and down like this. And then he's like, dun, 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 dun. I'll go back and look up what song that was.
Wild.
But yeah, it's just such a simple thing that nobody would think of. Nobody would think of that. You know?
What?
Yeah.
It's this, dude, that's so crazy. And it makes me think about when George St. Pierre, this is unrelated but related. Just about geniuses and how they think about things and why they're next level. And so he was talking about how video games have FPS. They've got frames per second, and how you can stop the video game in frames.
Okay.
And he realized when fighting BJ Penn, someone showed him how he could do this with video. And he was doing it stop motion with BJ Penn with his motions, being like, when he's in this position, I need to be here. And when he's here, I need to be there. And he would always... BJ Penn would even say, he's a step ahead of me somehow.
They see the chessboard.
He was literally doing it like a step ahead with this new technology, with video framing it, just being like, okay, this is where I need to be at this moment.
Wow.
And that
is next level. Yeah, that's next level.
He claims it was highly effective. Like, whether it was or not, I don't know, but like, he claims it made a huge difference in my fight.
I don't doubt it.
You know, so I'm like, it's just these people who think about things like that, like jumping. How high is the crowd going to jump?
It's like thinking about things in 3 dimensions.
Yes, that's totally what it is. Yeah. It's the whole Michael Jackson thing where it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make shoes so that I can lean like however 45-degree angle or whatever, right? Yeah. And it's like, what? Why? And why do you wear a glove on one hand? And what, and he would explain to people, he got it. He understood stuff. He's like, because people need to remember me. They need to remember me and me, not someone else. They need to remember me.
That's right.
And I was like, it's genius, but it's scary.
It's simple.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah. And I also love the stories he tells about being out or Akon tells this story about him being out, and Michael Jackson would always be wearing masks.
Yeah.
You know, like highly, like CIA level masks, and wanting to see the crowd's reaction to Akon, meanwhile not knowing that Michael was right there. And he'd be like, oh, do you know what happened to me? If they knew I was there, they would rip me apart. And I'm like, that's just hilarious that I'm glad he had some fun with it.
That's a great impression, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know. It's so good, right? But I mean... I like the videos that really on YouTube, they really want to talk about how Michael Jackson had a deep voice. Like, they really want to go out of their way to prove, like, they show these different clips.
Sure.
They're like, here he is in this concert, listen to him. And it's like, okay, yes, he had a man voice, and he wasn't always talking in the soft, gentle voice. I get that, but he also wasn't going around talking, like...
Yeah, it wasn't like a gruff fellow.
And that was the other thing about Crownlands when I met them is Cody spoke so softly. Like, I never met... Both of them were protecting their voice. And that was, again, a lesson I was learning.
Well, based on the way they sing, I mean, you kind of have to.
Yeah, they were protecting their voice, and yet so, like, kind to everybody. They accepted our T-shirts. Like, when we were like, will you please take our T-shirt? And they were like, they wanted the girl t-shirts, and then they were like cutting them and designing them, redesigning them. And I was like, God, like we're talking about these next level thinkers. They were already thinking about how to make them cooler.
Yeah.
And, more unique.
And make it their own.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like, I'm going to wear your logo, but they'll never see a t-shirt like this one. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So, meeting those types of people is just great. And then Vanessa from Goodnight Sunrise, same show, she came over to them and she was like, I'll sell your merchandise. Can I just set my merch up beside yours? Mm-hmm. And they were like, yes. And I was like, Vanessa, you're a damn genius. I'm like, how did you think of that? She's like, you're going to set up beside me, right? And I'm like, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Like, yes. Yeah. It didn't make a huge difference because I'll tell you what, Crownlands killed it. They were insane. And they sold 5 boxes of vinyl that night. Like the lineup just went and then they just sold. And
they're one of those bands.
Yeah, man.
They're one of those bands. Yeah.
Magic to them.
Yeah.
And the Lazies, I've experienced some great nights with too, but the merch sale, The Damn Truth, good crowd as well. Love them. Did you see
their show recently here?
And I opened for them in 2023, but not in 2024.
I opened for them too in 2018, I think.
Yeah. I opened for them in 2012, but I try not to talk about it because it was at Zaphod's and I didn't really bring anybody out. And it was a horrible night. But I mean, I got to redeem myself.
Eugene wasn't happy about that, was he?
By the time I was at Zaphod's, Eugene was a rarity.
Was he gone? Okay.
He was there.
Yeah.
But to actually see him or him take part in things was rare, I think, in the final few years. But it was like, Spag and Slow Tom and a lot of the guys who are still around in the scene today, doing good stuff in the sound community. But gosh, we had good places to learn. Yeah,
The Damn Truth are a killer live band.
They're insane.
They're really, really good.
They're one of the bands that made me really want to go play in Europe and go play in the UK in specific because they're there all the time.
PY was telling me that they're a lot bigger in Europe than they are in Canada. They're playing much bigger theaters.
Yep.
And here they are at the Brass Monkey, which is a great venue. It's not a theater.
Nope.
But I think they're deserving of that level.
They are. And
I do.
It's the same. My producer's band is in a similar circle to them where they're called the Commoners and they're doing the same thing where they're touring the UK and Europe on repeat. And they're not known here, but they're very known over there. And so they just got to do 10 dates with the Sheepdogs over.
Nice.
And so it's like I tell people, like, if you can get to Germany, if you can get to the UK, like, and you're like, you really want it to go because the population density and the travel equals out.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I mean, Canada's a slog, right? It's just too friggin' big.
Financially, it's very difficult. It's not impossible. It's very difficult unless you have the perfect connections to take you to the right venues with the right guarantees. Because 1 or 2 bad stops and you're going to start losing money in a bad way, and then no one's in the band is happy. It kills the mojo. You at least want to break even on tour, and you even want to feel like you're making a little bit of ground, and it just will up that momentum and everything in the band.
That's right. Yeah.
So you said that you have like session musicians.
Yeah.
When you play live at Live on Elgin, do you think you'll have like session musicians, or it will be a live band that you picked?
It'll be session guys. There's a few guys around town I've played with. Just depending on people's schedule, it's just really more about availability, but it'll be a trio situation for sure.
Yeah. I love Live on Elgin and they've been so good to the community ever since they set up. And, it's always like a pleasant experience, Taming Sari's first sellout show at Live on Elgin.
Yeah,
definitely. And what's funny is the set list is up there, and not one of those songs ended up getting recorded. I think there's 16.
Still in the venue.
Oh yeah,
where is it?
Yeah, they put up a bunch of in the green room where they
They
frame certain set lists.
I saw that, but I didn't read them specifically, so I didn't see.
Yeah, we're up there. One of our set lists, or last time I was there, it was still there. Maybe it got. If it gets replaced, I'm not gonna be.
Well, that's where we shot. We shot Where Did I Go Wrong there.
Nice.
Yeah, in November, which we dropped today.
Nice.
Yeah, at the same time.
I tell like the like all bands, like, you know, you want to play Brass Monkey and sell it out. You want to play the Bronson Center and sell it out.
Oh, that's my dream right now.
Right?
Bronson. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Bronson Center's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And like, of course, we weren't the ones selling it out. It was JJ Wild. But I mean,
oh, she's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, man. It was just amazing.
My mixing engineer worked on her record that I think it won a Juno, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Just unbelievable talent for sure.
Wild. And I tell the story about how they were in there rehearsing like hours before in their sweats and everything.
Yeah.
And they had their sound set up and all this. And I was just watching it, taking it in. And I was like, oh, this is great that they're going to work out everything. It's so perfectly. And then as soon as the sound check ends, the sound guy's like, lock, over the shoulder. And out they go. And it's like, no, what sound man do I have?
See, like you said, that can make or break a band. And she just came through here, didn't she?
Yeah.
I missed that one, but
she's incredible, and I was nervous just standing beside her.
She's gonna blow up. Like, she's already blowing up, but I feel like she's gonna blow up to the next level.
Yep.
Whatever that looks like, you can just kind of tell.
Yep.
Yeah.
There'll be one song that will come smashing out. It's like once you start putting out a consistent level of good music, I find it's like you're on that track, and then something will
momentum.
Something will pop out, and like with Taming Sorry, we never had like anything major, but like with Crazy, right? Which did best for us. We were on a train of like trying to do better. What made better, you know, and doing that analysis as a band, like, oh, is it more punchiness? Is it more this? Is it more flow? And yeah, you get into a groove and anything can happen that way.
Yeah. And sometimes too, you don't know, like the songs that you think people will like are not the ones they end up liking. That's what I find so interesting. You could never really guess that. At all.
Nope. And once, oh gosh, yeah. So like with Crazy, I was like to the producer, I was like, look, I know that you make me crazy is not good enough. I know that's not going to fit. He's like, what do you mean it's not good enough? What? Do it again? I did it again. He's like, oh, nice. I like that. He's like, that's perfect. What do you want to change that for? And I was expecting him to be like, no, go back, do this, do that. So yeah, you don't know. And then with Ran Out of Money, which we got 20,000 streams on that song. We didn't put a dime into it. So for me, that's a huge success.
That's awesome.
To have a song just crank out 20,000 streams in a year, it's like, okay, you did your job because I didn't even have to fund you. And that song, the producer was like, another song about money. But that time he was wrong. That time that song did really well. It didn't matter that it was another song about money.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, sometimes we're nitpicky for the right reasons. Sometimes we're nitpicky just because. And
you need that outside voice to tell you. You really do.
Yep, I agree.
You get too into that, kind of tunnel vision of.
Well, you work with Steve Foley, right?
Yeah. Steve and I go back probably 20 years now, but he's done. So he did the first Desert Stranger. He did the last Animal Confession, and he's doing the current Desert Stranger right now that we're working on.
Yeah.
So I don't know when that's going to be done. I'm thinking like mid to late next year. I'm going to do another single and just keep plowing. It's been a challenging one, this one. I've gone back and like there's some songs where I'm like, okay, this really, really works, but then I don't like the chorus of this. I went and re-recorded a chorus and I'm like, oh, this chorus sucks too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I got to change something around. You know what I mean? So, the rest of the song is like, I really like it. I don't want to scrap it because there's already been a lot of time and effort and money being put into that.
Yep.
I don't want to waste it. And there are some songs too where I was just like, okay, I can't save this one. I can't save that. For whatever reason, it just doesn't have when you hear the song in your head and you're making it, and as you're going, it just forms. But then it just goes in a different direction. You're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and it doesn't work. Shit, what do I do now? You either scrap it or you try to rework it, and depending on your level of like how much you're willing to put up with the reworking, you'll scrap it at some point. So I'm at a point now where I'm really happy with the songs. Like I've gotten some more demos back of this album, which is I think going to have like 10, 11 songs on it. I'm very, very happy with like 95% of it. But that extra 5% is like kind of big. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
but it's an ongoing process, and it's fun. It's challenging. And this is one thing I was thinking about, when musicians, especially local musicians, they put out a song, put out a record, like the first thing I say is congratulations, because it is so hard. It is so hard to make music in the way that I'm sure you and I are thinking you want to make it, at that level.
Yeah.
That it's just like, even today when I put out the song, I just like, and I've been listening to the mix, the master for probably like a month or two now. So it's been done for a while. But even today, as it came out and people started listening, I was like, I just felt a profound sense of relief. Like, okay, I can like relax. It's done. It's out there. It's gone. It's in the world. So yeah, that's why I always say congrats, because, and especially like even as a solo artist now, I'm responsible for writing all the music and doing all the arrangements. Steve obviously helps a ton with that. There's stuff where he sees things that, man, I just couldn't see. I just can't.
Yep.
And then when he's like, oh no, you want to do this, and I'm like, okay, like a guitar solo or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Then it's really good. And you don't necessarily see what he's talking about right away.
Yeah.
But then when it's done, it's like, on point, so
yep.
It's still a collaboration, but the songs generate out of my head to begin with. So it's different, very different from working in a band situation where you're like, you come up with this, I come up with that, and then we work it out, and then it just forms into something eventually. So, it's like there's some pros and cons to being a solo artist.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pros, I'm not saying they outweigh the cons, but it is fun to really have complete control over the song. I like that. But the negative part is like, okay, well, you're not getting any second opinions. You're not getting third opinions. Maybe what you're doing sucks a little bit. So you don't really know, because, I think I'm right like maybe 80% of the time. And the rest of the time it's like, okay, that didn't work for whatever reason. And then you just kind of move on from it. You don't get too attached to it,
Interesting. I mean, I think you're doing great work by yourself, and I do think it's a lot. It's a huge shift, right, from writing in the band, like you were saying, where you have so many different inputs, and sometimes you can just say like, I don't know what to do here, and you can do that. You can say, I don't know what to do, and somebody else will inevitably pick up the ball and try something. And normally you move on that way, you move forward. But if you're stuck and you're like, I just don't know what to do, then you really need to go find inspiration and start thinking about it in a different way. And maybe that'll make sense in the next day, and maybe it won't.
Yeah. And sometimes ever. Like I had one section of a song, the same one where the chorus didn't work. It had a bridge, and I liked the bridge musically, but every time I wrote lyrics over it and sang over it, I just couldn't get it to work. It just didn't work. There's something weird about the rhythm, or I don't know what. It just sucked. So actually in the last session last month, I started working on it, and I was like, I just reshifted. Like you said, you just kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit, and I ended up being a guitar solo.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense as a guitar solo. And it was done. I could walk away from it, and I was satisfied with that,
Yeah, it's so funny, or it's the great part about music is there's all these things that like never change, but they're all very important details that change song to song, like tempo and BPMs and what key you're in, and all these different details that they never really change, but they're all so unique and important in their combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And it's a joy, right? Writing and releasing, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it.
And definitely congratulations on releasing your song today. And
Thank you.
Like I said, I was enjoying it. I really liked it. I thought, where did I go wrong? Made a lot of sense. And I like that you're not just like, I like that in your lyrics, sometimes like you come back and make a similar statement, but it's not the same statement. I'm trying to think of an exact example in my mind, but I can't exactly. But Yeah, you'll say, for example, what is it like? Where did I go wrong? What do you say before or after that?
I mean, I wonder where did I go wrong?
And then there's
probably something before that.
Yeah, there's a statement you make, and it's like, where did I go, but not wrong? And it's like, that's what I kind of mean. Like,
yeah. Like, where did I go?
Yeah, like
it's just kind of leaving a different interpretation
exactly.
open to it. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That you're doing that.
That's an interesting observation.
And I saw that in several songs, like not just in that one, but I noticed that in a couple. And that's like one of your writing things, you know?
There, another example, subconscious writing thing. I wasn't super aware of that, so that's cool that you mentioned it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
With Emma Lamont-Tang the other day, I picked out with her that she poses a question often at the end of her chorus. They'll be like, you know, the question will come, and I'll be like, I think that's part of getting better at writing, is like learning that you can just ask something to nobody and there will be an answer following, right? It's just you don't hear it. And so, it's again, there's joys of writing and learning new things. And
she's got some voice, eh?
Dude, she's a mega talent. I told her, like, if you're not known, like known, I'll be very surprised, because she has all the elements to have a lot of success in the music industry.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because she's so willing to work with people and like take criticism. She's worked with producers, like Justin Bieber's one of his producers from the past. And like, they're critical folks. The people... A lot of these big wigs in the industry, it just gets more and more critical. So the fact that she works with people with ease and learning to write from Lynn Hanson, who's like an Ottawa folk legend. And so, a lot of hope for her. But you've done amazing work yourself, Andrew. You should be very proud.
Thanks, man.
And again, I remember Animal Confession back in the day. You guys were a formidable band that I looked up to, and
appreciate that.
I can remember your website even. This might seem trivial, but I can remember telling Ginger Fox, my guys, like, look how these guys are presenting themselves. Do you see how they're doing this? This is how we should be marketing, presenting ourselves. And like, whoa, you know, that's the way I used to.
That's really kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. The other bands like that I used to harp on them for was like the Lionels, right? Or the,
they're ridiculous.
Or the Peptides. I'd be like, these are the bands that they're doing things right. And so you know what you're doing.
I think you find your own way. You know, you find what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like the Michael Jackson that wants to be remembered. You kind of want to do that your own way, so that you present something memorable to the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you remain yourself and happy with it, with what you present. Because you have 21 songs out with Animal Confession, which is, you know, that's a lot of music.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of good music, and it is good, and it is similar. There's a connection to Desert Stranger.
Well, I shifted like gears a little bit there with the heavy, you know, drop D kind of riffs, and I just decided like I really wanted to tap into that pop side of me a little bit more.
Yeah.
But still have like rock guitars, because that's what I really know. I wouldn't really know how to play pop on guitar, I don't think, but you know, to an extent. But yeah, no, I made a conscious decision there to like, okay, I went back to like standard tuning only, no drop D. And right away, that gives a completely different sound and vibe. And then just the songwriting's a little bit different. There's less heavy riffage. There's less really, really big, heavy drums, that kind of thing, you know, which I love all that stuff. I love all that, which is why I was happy to do something different, you know, because it just like, it gave me a bit of a break and a new kind of feel to the sound. I think I made the right choice. I'm quite confident about that.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Get out there, folks. Listen to Desert Stranger on Spotify. Are you on YouTube?
Yeah, the video's out on YouTube.
Okay, check the video out on YouTube. There's great music here going back to 2021. So with some really great songs for you to check out. And in the spring, keep an eye open, an ear open, and go support Andrew, Desert Stranger, at Live on Elgin.
Correct.
And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, man. It was fun.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching out there. And we'll see you all again next time on All Worn Out. Bye-bye, everybody.